What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. It is time to talk about the Monaco Grand Prix. I have mixed feelings from this weekend. Going into the weekend, I was so excited because Monaco is truly one of my favorite tracks on the calendar, and we had cars on track on one of the most beautiful tracks on the circuit. But the race was quite underwhelming. Some of the experiments that took place did not work out, and the on-track action was less than stellar. I can admit it, but we're still here to talk about everything that did happen this weekend. Brandon, how you feeling?
I'm feeling okay, I guess. Like you said, it was an interesting weekend, but I'm excited to break it down and talk about it nonetheless.
Yeah, you can already tell that it wasn't the greatest Formula One race of all time because even when it is a below average race, we're excited to talk about it. We're ready to go. Cars are on track. We loved it. This weekend, I mean, even the drivers were apologizing in the post-race interviews for it. So obviously, our spirits are a little dampened, but that is okay. We're still going to talk about it. We're still going to have a great podcast for you guys. So let's kick it off with our one sentence rundown. Brandon, go ahead and hit us with yours.
My one sentence rundown is, what can we do to make Monaco better? A question rather than a sentence, I guess you could say. But I think, something needs to change. Obviously, what happened this weekend with the mandatory 2 pit stops, didn't really work. Created quite a bit of stuff going on all up and down, but it didn't really do what it was intended to do. So I don't know. One thought I had is, should we just award the points in qualifying? That truly is what counts in Monaco. But maybe we reward some points in qualifying and some in the race. So I don't know, but just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, well, that would kind of ruin the whole point if we had one week in the entire year where qualifying determined points. Like, could you imagine if a championship came down to that? Someone would absolutely lose their mind. That's not the way to do it. The obvious answer is that the cars need to be smaller, and they're getting smaller next year. Smaller. It's not enough, but it's moving in the right direction. So you could maybe say, like, 30 years down the line, hopefully the cars are small enough for Monaco again. But the fact of the matter is, right now, yeah, the cars are way too big. The two stops did not do what it was intended to do. Like, in my mind, I was hyping it up. I was excited for the two stop. I was like, this is, going to lead to different strategies. Turns out teams were just like, we're going to have one of our drivers hold up the entire field because no one can pass. And then the other one will get their two stops and we'll switch and do it again. And so it was a horrible race. Cars were going 3 laps down at certain points. It was, even harder to overtake because we're at the end of a regulation and there's car size and dirty air working against them now. And so I look back and I have fond memories of Monaco, and there's been good races in the past, but it's been because of weather or car problems for the leader. So at the moment, it's just hard for me to imagine any situation where we can make Monaco better.
Yeah, and hopefully with the cars getting slightly, ever so slightly smaller next year, that will help a little bit. And I don't know, Monaco's still a great place. It's very nostalgic. It's one of my favorite tracks still. I will still love Formula One there and watch the racing. Absolutely, because you never know what's going to happen in Formula One, especially with Monaco in the equation. But, we got to try something else.
Yeah, and it is the best qualifying of the year. I will say that for sure. I mean, Saturday was incredible to see Charles Leclerc have provisional pole and then Lando Norris snatched it at the end. We had drama in every single qualifying session, so that was great. Like Monaco's ability to provide any kind of action is not what's in question. It's is this suitable for Grand Prix racing? And that rolls right into my one sentence rundown was that this weekend broke my heart because I have previously been the biggest Monaco defender. I have defended it the entire time we have done this podcast. And for the first time this weekend, I had to ask myself, is Monaco's time in Formula One over? I mean, they tried something new with the mandatory two stop, and that already felt kind of gimmicky that you're adding on a special rule for this one race. And then it did nothing to make the race better. You could argue that it made it worse. Certainly, if you're a Mercedes driver, it made it worse for you. The cars are way too big, and I mean, we've already said it. The cars are getting smaller, but what is it, 10 centimeters? That's not going to do anything around Monaco. Overtaking is impossible. The one DRS zone is too short. So, we have fond memories of it, but all these new fans, every single Monaco race they've seen has been a parade, So In your opinion, is Monaco's time in Formula One over?
I don't think so. I think that it would take a lot to remove Monaco from the calendar just because of the prestige of the race. It's historically it's one of the, you know, it's included in the Triple Crown, which is Monaco, the Indy 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So, I mean, historically, it just has so much significance that I don't think it'll be removed from the calendar. Also, I would imagine that that event brings in a lot of money to the area, and money does speak quite loudly to Formula One and all that. It's also where a lot of the drivers live, so I think it's a cool environment for them to be close to where they live, and all that stuff. So I don't think it'll be off the calendar. I do think something should change. One thing that Martin Brundle was mentioning during the broadcast was do the mandatory two-stop thing again, but mandate that the first pit stop has to happen within the first 20 laps or something like that. So that way we don't have teams, kind of doing what they were doing this weekend and holding the entire field up and creating a 29-second gap so that the driver in front could pit twice or whatever needs to happen. So
Yeah, but at what point does it become that you're making it into a gimmick and a spectacle more than you're making it an actual car race? I mean, you could add in all these rules where the race director says minimum lap speed can't be below this, and I can penalize you if I feel like you're driving unnecessarily slow, and here's your pit stop window, so you have to pit during these times, and you have to use the intermediate at some point, even if it's not raining. Like you could throw in all these rules, but at that point, are you losing what makes Monaco Monaco just for the sake of trying to make it better for fans on TV?
yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think my solution would be just remove the mandatory two stop and let Monaco be what it is. You know, I mean, and I think it's different. It's special because there's so much emphasis on qualifying, and just let it be what it is. And as the cars change over the years, it'll probably get more exciting, and that'll be great. But just let Monaco be Monaco.
Yeah, and I think that is the most important part in this is that the track itself is not the issue. Like it's a beautiful track. It has some iconic corners in the sport. The cars are literally too big. Like we need smaller cars. You look at the junior formula races this weekend, or you look at the Formula E race at Monaco. Formula E even posted a graphic yesterday morning that was so funny about how many overtakes they had in both races they had there were in the hundreds. And so you can overtake around Monaco. It's just the fact that these current cars that we have are way too big. And in my mind, I think that's what needs to change. And that would increase, racing everywhere, not just at Monaco. Like every track we go to would benefit from having smaller cars, cars that can follow each other better. And so my wish is for that to change about the sport, not that we leave Monaco or keep changing the rules at Monaco to try and make it different and better.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I think, you know, like you said, smaller cars would benefit every single track we go to. Tracks like Jeddah, uh, Imola, even Hungary, all these tracks that are quote unquote harder to overtake at would, we would completely stop talking about that if the cars were reduced in size by like, 20%, 30%.
Yeah, it's almost like we should bring back refueling. Wouldn't that be crazy? That's a crazy thought right there. That
That
would
is
be
crazy.
absolutely insane.
Wow.
If anything, if the racing around Monaco continues to be, subpar, maybe they lower ticket prices and we get to go a little bit sooner than we thought we would. So there could be a night or a light shining in the darkness in this. So there's at least some bright spot there. Let's stop being so negative. Start talking about some of the good things that happened this weekend. Great things happened this weekend for Lando Norris. And it's time for us to ask, is Lando Norris back in the driver's seat for the title? He's officially only 3 points behind his teammate after converting pole to victory this weekend. He delivered under pressure on Saturday, which is something we have been saying he needs to do. Qualifying has been what has let him down this year. He's made some mistakes, put himself on the back foot behind Oscar Piastri. Got it done on the most important Saturday of the year, put himself on pole, gave himself the chance to win. That's now two straight finishes ahead of Oscar Piastri. So you've got to think the momentum's starting to go back to his side. The confidence is going back to him. We've got one more race in this triple header. So, perhaps we jumped off the Lando Norris train too quickly. How are you feeling about Lando Norris's current title chances right now?
I mean, I think I'm feeling okay about them. I think it's, a three-horse race, like we've said many times before, but I mean, Lando's definitely not out of it. I do think that he's just more inconsistent than Oscar is still. I mean, we'll see great weekends from him, and then we'll see not so great weekends from him. I mean, if you look at Oscar's weekend, Oscar didn't have a bad weekend here in Monaco. He had a solid weekend. He finished in P3 on the podium. I mean, if we're talking about damage limitation in this situation, it was about as good as Oscar could have done. If Lando was going to beat him, that was where he needed to be. I mean, P2 would have been nice, but you know, Charles is unbelievable around Monaco, so nobody can take that away from him. But I think yeah, it's definitely still on for Lando. I think he just needs to find some consistency, and he again probably just watching Lando fight for a championship is so high and low. He can't just calm his emotions, and that's what he needs to be. And that's what Oscar Piastri has, Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected all the time. Even finishing P3, Oscar just kind of tells you how it is, and he moves on. He's ready to go for the next race. So
Yeah, I mean, even this weekend, Lando Norris felt calmer and more steady than he normally has. So I hope he's moving in the right direction in that. We will see as we wrap up this triple header if he can continue the momentum through this triple header. Like I think if he goes through Spain, has a good race there, beats Oscar Piastri, would likely take the championship lead if he beats Oscar Piastri in Spain. So if he leaves this triple header with the lead going into another week off, I think that would be massive for Lando Norris, massive for his headspace going throughout the rest of the year. So we'll have to see where he ends this triple header. And then as far as Max Verstappen goes in this fight, I know you said it's a three-horse race. Obviously, I mean, when he qualified P4, there was really nothing that he was going to do from there. Gave it his best shot, hoping for a safety car, but ultimately still ended up in P4. After the Bahrain Grand Prix, perhaps we overreacted and said, I don't know if Max can do this, and then he proceeded to win to kick off this triple header. So, I'm not going to count Max out yet. Anything could happen. We've got the technical direction coming in Spain, so I'm making no statement on Max Verstappen's championship hopes right now because, as far as I'm concerned, he could still win 4 races in a row and take the championship lead like that. So, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, again, going back to Lando Norris, it's just when you think about Max Verstappen and you think about Oscar Piastri, you know what version of them you're going to get when we show up in Spain next week or at the end of this week. But I still feel like there's a question mark of what version of Lando Norris are we going to get when we show up in Spain? Are we going to get the confident, calm, cool, and collected Lando, or are we going to get the Lando that's beating himself up like no other Formula One driver ever has in the history of the sport? So that's not taking anything away from Lando, but it's just I think there's a little bit of a difference between him and then Oscar and Max. So
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. And it really does depend on what version of Lando Norris shows up that weekend. Like at his best, he can beat Oscar, he can beat Max. The problem is, is he gonna have too many weekends where he's not at his best and therefore he doesn't beat Oscar or beat Max, and that is what would lose him the championship. He's got the pace, he's got the raw talent on his day. He can be the fastest driver on the track, and we've seen him do that. We've seen him have dominant performances. It's just we need to see those performances more often and more consistently for him to legitimately be a championship contender. Not to say that he's not legitimately a championship contender right now. He's 3 points out of the lead, but I'm saying for it to last a whole season and for him to be there at the end of the season, he needs to have less lows, more highs, more consistent at his actual highest potential level. And so I think he can do it. I hope he does do it for the sake of a great championship battle. And he seems like a great guy. Never met him, but hope he can do it. He just needs to have that more consistency.
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talked about a little bit earlier that some teams elected to play some games and have, one driver slow down so the other one could, pull off a double pit stop and get his points. So we've got to ask ourselves, might as well at least have some fun with it. Who played the better team game, Williams or RB? George Russell got so frustrated behind the Williams that he cut the chicane, received the penalty. ended up being a very harsh penalty. Neither Mercedes driver scores points. Isaac Hadjar might just be the best rookie on the grid, in my opinion. Double point score for RB. Liam Lawson scores his points, first point of the season. Isaac Hadjar gets his best result of the entire season. So, you know, great weekend for Williams and RB in the midfield fight. They pulled off this teamwork to the best they could. I didn't love watching it, but at least they did it to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, it was so interesting to watch. And, as I'm watching, hearing James Vowles on the broadcast kind of key in and talk about it and how, you know, he was just saying, he said, this is not how I like to go racing, but this is how we're going to do it because it's the best chance we have to get a double points finish. And I mean, I think both teams did well to secure crucial points i- on a weekend when, Mercedes was certainly out of position and there is points available. I mean, yeah, and it was a good race for both of them. It was painful to watch, but I think under the given rules, they maximized them.
Yeah, it is so funny to me that they put in the two stop and they said this is going to make drivers not conserve their tires because they have to make two pit stops, so they'll be going flat out more. And then Alex Albon spends the last third of the race driving 10 seconds slower than he does a normal lap. So it had the exact opposite effect. And fun fact for the day, Isaac Hadjar does have more points than Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson combined. So that's your fun fact of the day, that the lead RB driver has more points than the two drivers that have driven for Red Bull this year.
Yeah, Isaac keeps it up. He's going to be passing Max Verstappen.
Yeah, next thing you know, he's gonna get the demotion to Red Bull. So, for his sake, I hope that doesn't happen in his rookie year. We made some predictions for the Monaco Grand Prix. Let's talk about how those went. You are currently leading 20-18 because you've got the point that you so deserved, as determined by the fans for your Franco Colapinto prediction last weekend. Podium push of the weekend, I said Carlos Sainz, which I do not think I deserve the point for. He got knocked out in Q2, did score a point, but finished behind his teammate and probably a letdown. So no point for me.
And I said Oscar Piastri, which, like I mentioned before, Oscar didn't have a bad weekend by any stretch. Still finished on the podium, good damage limitation, finished in front of Max, extending his lead over Max in the championship slightly. But as we previously discussed, Oscar needs to knock it out of the park to get podium push of the weekend because he's been doing so well. So no point for me either.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably his statistical second worst weekend of the season, and you predicted him to be podium pusher, so that is unfortunate there. Back market of the weekend, I said Charles Leclerc, which might be the worst prediction I've ever made in my entire life. Ends up qualifying P2 and finishing there as well. He was very disappointed with the result. I mean, he was very, very dejected about not getting pole or victory this weekend. Really did all he could. And he's just so good around this track. I should have trusted him. Even though the Ferrari's terrible and they've had horrible strategies this year, I should have trusted Charles Leclerc. No point for me.
Yeah, we will not make that mistake again. I said Lewis Hamilton for my back mark of the weekend. Not a terrible weekend from Lewis. I mean, I still think it was a step in the right direction for him. Decent race, and ultimately he was on pace with Charles for most of the weekend. So
Well, he finished like 50 seconds behind him. He had no pace in his last stint. So it wasn't great, but I mean it certainly wasn't bad enough to warrant backmarker. He still finished P5, which is like, all right, I guess. So yeah, what can you do? What can you do? Poll, I said Oscar Piastri, which was incorrect.
and I also said Oscar Piastri, which is incorrect.
Now this is where it gets rough for us for sure. P3, I said George Russell, which was incorrect.
B3, I said Lando Norris, which was incorrect.
I mean, this is just tough to read off. I said Oscar Piastri in P2, which was incorrect.
And I said Max Verstappen in P2, which was incorrect.
And I said Max Verstappen in P1, which was incorrect.
And I said Oscar Piastri in P1, which was incorrect.
If you're keeping track at home, we have not gotten a single point so far, which just is salt in the wound after a poor Monaco Grand Prix. Our one push in prediction, I said that there would be at least two incidents during the free practice sessions, and that happened. There were lots of incidents in the free practice sessions. One could even say that free practice was more interesting than the race itself, but I do get my point for this one.
Yeah, that was a great prediction. I said that Fernando Alonso finally scores his first points of the season, which was looking so good until he retired the car for his like fifth career Monaco DNF, which is just mighty unfortunate.
Yeah, I cannot believe that Fernando Alonso still found a way to not score points. It was looking so good for him. I was convinced after Saturday that he was going to score points. Some might even say that you jinxed him with this prediction, that you're the reason Fernando Alonso retired around Monaco.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe I am.
Yeah, I've seen your predictions for next week as well. So hopefully, for Fernando Alonso's sake, you're not a jinx to him. The fans at Will Loves the World, Lance Stroll wins the Monaco Grand Prix. Incorrect. At Mel V Diaz, Alex Albon finishes P4, which was incorrect. And at X Gaslight, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes on the podium, which was also incorrect. So really, just tough weekend all around for the predictions at Monaco. We should give ourselves some grace because how could you predict a race where nothing happened? But I did close the gap, so the lead is now 20-19 in your favor. I mean, just rough weekend overall, though.
Yeah, it was a rough weekend on the track. It was a rough weekend on the predictions. I got 0. Really needed a good weekend there. Hopefully next weekend in Spain will be better, but on all fronts, I guess.
Yeah, if this is your first time watching or listening, we promise that we have some wheel knowledge. This was just a rough week for us. So tune in next week, and I promise we'll have some better predictions, that is for sure. But that is all we have got for our recap of the Monaco Grand Prix. As always, thank you for watching or listening to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. Before we get out of here, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
I'm excited for Spain. Spain is going to be better than Monaco, I think. So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe they put Spain, a track that used to be universally hated, right behind Monaco. So, after we just finished watching Monaco, the on-track action that we see in Spain will look like it's the greatest thing we've ever seen in the world.
It's possible. I'm hoping that it is the greatest thing we've ever seen in the world.
Yeah, well, now that they got rid of that chicane at the end of the track, it's a good track. I like it. It's good racing, good action. Glad they don't test there anymore and then go race. So it's good. We're going to have a great week in Spain. We will be back later in the week to predict the Spanish Grand Prix. So make sure you come back for that. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all the things before you go. But until the next one, have a great day and God bless.
See ya.